We are now live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Shropshire Council, Wednesday, the 8th of January 2022. I am obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and we will also have the BBC Midlands Today TV crew with us in the room at some point. Can I remind members to please identify your name and role before speaking so that it's clear to those watching the meeting as to who is speaking. I'm going to shift the agenda around a little bit today. I do apologise for that, but I will be moving the River Safety Update report to straight after members' questions. And I will also be taking item number 13 immediately after item number 8, as Councillor Potter has got another meeting to attend and may have to leave before we get to the original slot on the agenda. So I hope you'll bear with me on that one. I will make sure that I announce which item we are doing at each time. So, moving on, apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Rob Gittins, who unfortunately is unwell. Amanda, we don't have any other apologies, do we?
No other apologies.
Thank you very much. Item 2, disclosable interests cabinet. Any disclosable interests? No. Thank you. So minutes of the last meeting, which is the 27th of April 2022. I'm happy to propose those as the correct record. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you,
Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So moving on to public question time. We do not have any public questions today, so that's moving on to members' questions. First question comes from Councillor Kevin Hardy, who is joining us online. Good morning, Kevin. Over to you.
I do apologise, Chair, but I was just observing. I've got no papers with me or anything, so I haven't got a follow-up question.
Oh, right. Are you going to read your question out, or would you like me to read it out?
If you don't mind, I'd like you to read it out.
Okay, I'm happy to do that, Tim. You're all right for me to do that. So Kevin's original question was, with reference to the postponement of the development of the quarry and sports village swimming pools, how much money in total has been spent on the pools since 2013? Please include consultants' fees and architects' fees, plus any other fees paid to agencies and for the council officers' time. In addition, can you tell me the original estimated cost of refurbishment of the quarry pool circa 2013-14? Answering that question will be Councillor Cecilia Motley.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm Councillor Cecilia Motley, the portfolio holder for Communities, Place, Tourism and Transport and Culture and Leisure. Actually, we might as well add those in. Councillor Pardy, I'm very happy to answer this question. There are quite a lot of figures involved, but if you're happy, I'll plough through and then make sure you get a copy. Is that all right?
Thank you, yes.
Right, fine. This response focuses on the costs associated with the development of swimming provision in Shrewsbury and Whitchurch, which amount to around 695k. As these were developed in tandem, it's not possible to disaggregate costs solely for Shrewsbury. The breakdown of this is shown below. In addition to this are the usual management fees to the operator of around 300k per annum for the quarry and 135k for the sports village. There are also costs associated with ongoing repairs and maintenance. Under professional fees, the council now has a full REBA Stage 2 concept design report, including designs, detailed cost plan, detailed business modelling and appropriate surveys. This has provided an evidence-based approach to our decision to pause the scheme. The council has the intellectual property rights to all this information, and it can be used in the future following a review of the project. The design work has been completed on budget. Swimming in Shrewsbury and in Whitchurch, costs incurred to 31st of March 2022. Professional fees £567,594, legal fees £2,400, consultation fees £1,200, officers' time. The project manager was employed at a total cost of £124,760. The council's financial commitments to developing the design was protected as the project management and design team was procured on a stage-by-stage basis, and we are not committed to additional expenditure by pausing the scheme. Estimated cost of refurbishment. The estimated cost of replacing the quarry pool has been revised several times as the project has progressed and the specification clarified. In 2012, the cost of refurbishing the quarry pool was estimated to be, hang on, got to go down here. Was estimated to be refurbish existing quarry pool in a phased development, 9,667,000. Refurbish the existing quarry pools in one go, 8,305,000. In 2016, the cost of refurbishing the quarry pool was estimated to be quarry refurbishment 2,317,656, quarry renovation 12 million, sorry, that was millions actually, 12,808,323, quarry new build 10,989,859. So that demonstrates, Councillor Pardy, why I need to send these to you, I think. And the references in this are the green paper on the Quarry Swimming and Fitness Centre replacement 14th of March 2012 and the report to Cabinet 13th July 2016.
And Councillor Pardy, you said you didn't have a supplementary, is that correct?
No, and the answer's appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. So moving on to the next question comes from Councillor Peggy Mullock, who's going to join us at the table. When you're ready, Councillor Mullock, over to you.
My question concerns Whitchurch railway station and the lack of access to the south platform. Could Cabinet ask the relevant rail authority to look yet again at the problem of being a disabled user, parent with pram, or any resident who has difficulty climbing over the bridge with cases? There are 2 flights of stairs either side of this the railway station. Surely with the Disabilities Act in force, this situation cannot be fair to these people. I'll just make another comment that we've been trying for over 30 years to get this sorted. The rail companies, different ones, have been to town council, made promises, nothing's happened. And even the rail minister came recently to see the problem that we have. And I just thought it'd be good if Shropshire Council could perhaps put some weight behind it to get them going again.
Thank you, Councillor Mullock. Councillor Cecilia Motley will answer the question.
Thank you, Councillor Cecilia Motley, portfolio holder of the Communities Place, Culture, Leisure, Tourism and Transport. Thank you, Councillor Mullock, for your question. Following the work undertaken by the previous North Shropshire MP Owen Patterson, we understood that the rail authorities were committed to undertaking this work. However, I will, on behalf of Cabinet, write to the rail authorities responsible for Whitchurch Station, highlighting again the challenging access issues, especially for those people with disabilities, and I will ask officers to keep Councillor Mullock informed of their response and the potential timetable to make these necessary adjustments.
Thank you, Councillor Motley. Do you have a supplementary, Peggy? Were you?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Moving on to our third question of the day, Councillor David Gasner.
Thank you, Leader. There are growing concerns about the discovery of microplastics within our blood, the air we breathe, and even within the placenta of unborn babies. There is a plastic coverings of blue paper and card recycling bags that are used by Viola, but the older bags are deteriorating and the plastic is flaking off to join other microplastics in the environment. Is the council aware of this problem? And for those who do request a purple bin for recycling, could Shropshire residents be given new blue bags and the old ones collected to be disposed of without more microplastics being added to our environment?
Thank you, Councillor Basler. In response, Councillor Ian Nellens.
That's on command. Yeah, Councillor Ian Nellens, portfolio holder for climate change, natural assets and the green economy. And thank you for your question. The Council is aware that the surface of the older blue bags does deteriorate over time. The current supply of bags have been redesigned to put the polypropylene coating on the inside of the bag to reduce the impact of weathering. The coating is necessary in order to keep the contents dry enough to remain acceptable for reprocessing. The manufacturers have advised that the coating could be removed entirely. However, this would increase the amount of rainwater leaking into the bags and therefore reduce the proportion of paper and card that could be acceptable to reprocessors. Veolia take the health and safety of their staff very seriously and commission regular risk assessments for their collection services, including the use of the blue bags. The last workplace air monitoring assessment was carried out in August 2021. The results indicated that personal exposure to inhalable dust respirable dust and machine-made mineral fibres were significantly below the relevant workplace exposure limits, and in some cases below the analytical limit of detection, and not considered to be a level that was potential to cause detrimental effects to health through inhalation. It should be noted that this report applies to Veolia staff who handle the containers and contents continually throughout the working day, and any exposure to residents will be significantly smaller. The rollout of the purple lidded bin for recycling is not connected, as you will be aware the bins are for the use of plastic, glass and metal, and do not replace the food bags for the collection of paper and cardboard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Jim Supplementary.
Yes, thanks very much for that very full response. Just a bit of confusion really in my question. I'm sorry about that, but what I was thinking that when the people receive their new purple bins, they could also receive a new set of a new recycling bag.
Councillor Lennon.
Residents can apply for a new bag as and when it's required at any time, as they can do any recyclable facility. So that can be carried out. It's just not everybody would need it, so it wouldn't be cost effective to do it in a blanket.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Coming on to the next question again, Councillor David Basman.
Thank you. This was originally a question from Councillor Rob Wilson.
Sorry, we're going to do it in order. I think it's the one about your bus.
Oh, right. So,
Got it?
sorry.
No worries.
Sorry. Yes, this is about late night bus service. I believe that discussions are taking place about introducing a late night bus service in Shrewsbury, similar to the one operating on Oxford Street. What involvement has Shropshire had with these discussions, particularly involving the Town Council and Shrewsbury bid?
Thank you, Councillor Basman. In response, Councillor Cecilia Motley.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Basman, for your questions. Leader, do you mind if I don't repeat my title again?
I'm sure we'd all appreciate that.
Yeah,
Actually.
thanks
Thanks very much.
I'm not aware of any recent conversations regarding the provision of a late night bus service in Shrewsbury, although later evening operating times for bus services will certainly be under consideration as we review public transport, and will be one of the discussion points of the cross-party working group that we're now forming, and I will be announcing the membership of that later today. The Oswald Street service to which you refer is a collaboration between Oswald Street Bid, the Town Council and Tannet Valley coaches who will be operating the service, and we will certainly be speaking to them to understand any key points that may also be relevant to other areas of the county, including Shrewsbury. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Motley. Do you have a supplementary, David?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just could this be an element that might be considered as far as river safety is concerned? Because I think the provision of a late night bus service might be something which would be considered as part of that investigation.
I'm not 100% certain. It's actually in the report, I'm being told. So the answer is yes. So this time, Councillor Basman, you are asking the question on behalf of Councillor Rob Wilson, who can't be with us today.
Thank you. Shropshire Council is currently developing the long-delayed update local transport plan, LTP4. On the 13th of May 2022, the Department of Transport sent a bulletin to all local transport authorities saying it will be updating its guidance on local transport plans, quote, providing a much needed holistic view of what government is expecting LTAs to deliver, close quote. Early drafting of the new guidance has already commenced, and they have already stated that quantifying carbon reductions will be a key requirement. This new guidance is expected to be published in autumn 2022, and updated LTP should be in place by the spring of 2024. Is Shropshire Council working closely with the DFT to ensure that LTP4 complies with the new guidance and it doesn't require further work and more delay to make it compliant?
Thank you, Councillor Basman. In response, Councillor Dean Carroll.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Basman, for reading Councillor Wilson's question. The development of Shropshire Council's local transport plan has been commissioned to its term consultants, WSP. WSP has also been awarded the contract to develop the local transport plan guidance on behalf of the Department for Transport. This means that the work carried out on developing Shropshire's local transport plan to date will not be lost, and that a process of realignment can be carried out in advance of the issue of the guidance. This also means that Shropshire is well placed to test the emerging new guidance and demonstrate better tactics moving forward. We are also aware that the Department for Transport are planning to hold a series of events on the new guidance that officers will attend where possible. A gap analysis on the work carried out on the local transport plan to date is currently being undertaken to identify any additional pieces of work that will be required to align to the guidance and associated timescales for completion. Our current aim is to make a draft suite of local transport plan documents available for public consultation at the earliest opportunity after the formal issue of the guidance. This is anticipated to be by the end of December 2022, subject to the final issue date of the Department for Transport guidance and approval to consult by Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Basma understands Councillor Wilson has sent you an additional question.
Indeed he has, which I'm going to read. It's just gone blank. Right, yeah, which I'll read now. I'm pleased to hear that LTP4 will be aligned to the new guidance, and as such should set out how Shropshire Council will deliver ambitious, quantifiable carbon reductions in transport. What is the current timescale for LTP4 being published and fully adopted?
Thank you, Councillor Basma. Councillor Carroll.
As I said in the previous answer to the initial question, that the anticipated timeline by which we believe we'll be in a position to publish the draft suite of local transport plan documents is currently aimed for the end of December 2022, subject to the final issue date of the Department for Transport guidance and approval to consult by Cabinet, as I previously said.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Moving on to our next question comes from Councillor Andy Boddington, and Andy's joining us online. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question concerns automatic number recognition cameras. What plans does the council have to assess sites that would benefit from AMPR across the county?
Thank you, Councillor Boddington. I think we're going to take your question in two parts. So, Councillor Ian Nellins.
Yeah, Councillor Ian Nellins, thank you for that question. First of all, if the Cromwell Lane AMPR enforced pilot closure scheme is to go ahead, it will run initially as a pilot scheme. This will give the council the opportunity to learn and evaluate the effectiveness and public acceptability of using the new civil enforcement powers to encourage more active travel. As noted in the Cabinet paper, Council will apply these learnings to assess the suitability of other sites that may benefit from AMPR enforced closures. The Local Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, the LCWIP, which is currently under development, will identify those sites that will benefit from point closures and similar interventions that restrict vehicle access, as well as the timeframes, short, medium and long term, for delivery of the schemes. The second part.
Sorry, Councillor Nellins. Councillor Boddington, do you want to read out the second part of your question?
Yes, indeed, yes. As one example, Lower Court Street in Ludlow is designated no vehicles except for access because it's a historic residential street. But it's become a rat run for hundreds of vehicles daily, a situation that is getting worse due to new housing developments. What is the council's timetable for assessing the results of the Shrewsbury AMPR, assessing sites around the county where AMPR might make a significant difference to traffic management, safety and quality of life?
Thank you, Councillor Boddington. Councillor Nellins.
The Cromwell Lane scheme will be funded by the Department of Transport Active Travel Fund Tranche 2. The Department for Transport requires all local authorities to provide data on the deliverables that have been resulted from this fund or to which the fund has contributed at a minimum at scheme completion at 6 months and 12 months after completion. High-level monitoring data also needs to be submitted to the DFT every 2 months. If the Cromwell Lane pilot goes ahead, completion of the scheme is scheduled for early 2023, with 6 months monitoring scheduled for mid-2023 and 12-month monitoring scheduled for early 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nellins. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Boddington?
Yes, indeed, thank you. A couple of years ago, Shropshire Highways conducted a survey of traffic in Lower Court Street. Unfortunately, I suspect due to changes of staff, the purpose of the survey became confused. Residents were told that the result of the survey was there was no speed in traffic. However, the original purpose of the survey was to measure volume of traffic, not speed. Residents have tried to obtain the survey data so that they can understand the situation on their street, but highways have blocked this on grounds of cost. Could the portfolio holder look into this and provide residents with the data?
Councillor Nance, Councillor Carroll, which one wants this?
Thank you for that. Obviously, I haven't got that information here at present, but we can look into it and find out and get back to you with whatever data is available.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wellington. That takes us to the end of our members' questions. I'm just going to take the scrutiny item first, and then we will move straight on to the River Severn report. So, Councillor Claire Wild, Chair of Performance Management Scrutiny Committee, although in this case I think it was about a Climate and Ecology Task Force Committee. Councillor Claire Wild.
Thank you very much, Leader. My name's Claire Wild. I'm the Councillor for the Severn Valley and also Chair of Performance Management Scrutiny. So just to give you a bit of background, on the 25th of February 21, a motion was debated at full council, and it was agreed that a task and finish group will be set up to discuss a private members bill on climate and ecology. So we did that. We then took the findings from the task and finish group to the Performance Management Committee, and I subsequently wrote a letter to the person who asked for it. I've been advised that although I've shown Cabinet the letter should go to the next full council meeting. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, or if you're content to let the letter go to the next full council, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wild. So it's Claire's brought back to Cabinet just so that we know that the Task and Finish Group did consider it. Then the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee looked at it, and it now has to go back to full council. So if everybody's happy that we just take it to the next full council meeting. I'm seeing lots of nods. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wild. So moving on then to the item that I'm bringing forward, which is a river safety update, and to introduce this update, Councillor Dean Carroll.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Dean Carroll, I'm Cabinet Member for Physical Infrastructure. The recent tragic deaths in the River Severn due to drowning in the River Severn have brought back to the forefront of people's minds the issue of river safety in Shrewsbury and Shropshire as a whole. At the last full council meeting, a motion was agreed which asked us to report back on the work done to date on the review that we have already commissioned to look at river safety in Shrewsbury. And this is the interim report that we're bringing back to today's Cabinet meeting to update Cabinet, Council and the public on the work to date. The various points that were raised as part of the approved motion have all been passed on to the professional technical experts from WSP, their river safety and water safety team, who will be carrying out the review in partnership with various other organisations such as the World Life Saving Society. And this review has been jointly commissioned and funded by both Shropshire Council and Shrewsbury Town Council. But the work that we are carrying out, have been carrying out, and the work that will likely come from the outcome of this review is a piece that will involve a whole range of other partners, including Shrewsbury BID, the Environment Agency, West Mercia Police, Shropshire Telford and Wrekin Fire and Rescue Service, the Street Pastors, the Samaritans, and other organisations. We will be using the outcomes of the review as learning for all other hotspots around Shropshire where rivers and waterways come into close proximity with significant centres of population. Although, as the report does conclude that the evidence over the last quite long number of years is that, going back to 2004, that almost all accidental deaths have been in the town of Shrewsbury, and those that weren't were in immediate environs of Shrewsbury. This is a very difficult subject that we are trying to approach as sensitively as possible, not just in the interests of those who've recently been impacted by events in the river, but all of those who have over the years been impacted by events in the river, that this will bring painful memories back to mind. We have two recommendations, 3.1 and 3.2, and that is basically committing that we will bring the review when it's concluded back to Cabinet for consideration. So I think I'll leave my introduction there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So I have a proposer. Do I have a second for that report? Councillor Nance, thank you very much indeed. Do I have any questions on this report? Councillor Lasman.
Thank you, Chair. Dave Vassell, leader of the Dem Group on Council. I just would welcome this report. I think it's a very useful report. I'm glad that a lot of different elements are being considered, and so I think it's a very useful document. And I hope that the report. I look forward to seeing the report when it comes back. My only concern is timing. As you will know from my contribution at council, that I'm very concerned that that this issue is not consideration of this issue is not delayed, and that action is taken very promptly. And therefore I would like to suggest, I know I'm not a member of this cabinet, but I'd like to suggest that some sort of deadline be attached to this report, to say that we can expect it back at maybe the next council meeting, or perhaps the council meeting after that, for consideration. I just make that as a suggestion, which I'd be interested to hear Councillor Carroll's comment.
Thank you, Councillor Basma. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Leader. I welcome the initial comments that Councillor Basma has made. However, I take great exception to any suggestion that we will be considering any kind of delay in this subject area. We will be bringing this forward as soon as is physically possible. The work has already been commissioned. WSP are already doing the work. I think that the point you are making is wholly unbefitting to such a serious issue to suggest that there will be any intentional delays in this. I know that you already have your preconceptions on what the review should say, because you've informed us of those at both the previous cabinet meeting and previous council meeting. I don't think that that was the appropriate thing to do, as we've already commissioned a review, and I will not be commenting on that any further.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll.
Can I come back, Chair?
You can.
Thank you. My contribution was merely to give a timeline. It was not suggesting there would be any delay, but it might be useful to know when we could expect this coming back. That's all. That was my only reason for my contribution. It's not. I'm not suggesting in any way that there is deliberate delay being proposed on this and actioned on this. I'm just suggesting that it would be useful to have some idea of when this come back, so that we can all look forward to the report.
Thank you, Councillor Bowser. I can give you my personal assurance that that report will come back to this meeting as soon as it possibly can. There is no intention of any delays. If anything, we're trying to speed up the process. Thank you very much. So moving on to item number 8, which is the. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you. So I've got a proposer and I've got a seconder for that. Do I have all hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. That one yes, not that quickly. Yes, you're right. Thank you very much, Cabinet. So moving on to item number 8 is the Copthall and Port Hill 20-mile-an-hour speed limit zone. Councillor Ian Nellens.
Thank you, Councillor Ian Nellens. Copthall and Port Hill 20-mile-an-hour speed limit zone. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet's endorsement to develop the principle of a livable neighbourhood to go out to public consultation to implement a pilot 20-mile-an-hour speed limit zone in the wards of Copthorne and Port Hill and Shrewsbury. A study of the area was put forward as part of the proposed livable neighbourhood trials undertaken in late 2021. It received the most support, up to 85%, out of all the proposed measures the community were asked by feedback on. The main aim of implementing the 20-mile-an-hour zone in the Story area is to reduce overall traffic speed in the area closer to 20 miles per hour, rather than to bring the average speeds on all roads in the area down to 20 miles per hour or below. This will be implemented via a phased approach with an initial introduction of low-cost measures, including signage and road markings, and a community behaviour change campaign to encourage drivers over time to drive at appropriate speed without excessive reliance on enforcement. It is envisaged that the speed across the area will be monitored as part of the pilot and will be used to inform whether further engineering measures are required to reduce vehicular speeds in the area. On the report, there is a map showing the area, but basically it's a wedge bounded by the Mount, the B4380 and Port Hill Road. There's overwhelming evidence that lower speeds result in fewer collisions and reduced severity of injuries, and also every mile per hour reducing speed also helps reduction in carbon emissions in the area as well. This is set up under guidance from the Department of Transport, and the suggestions are that this is ideal for places such as outside of schools, on urban residential streets, where cycling and foot pedestrian is likely to be on the increase, or in the town centres. And there are a number of examples of where this has been successful in other areas. A peer review has been carried out in other areas, and as I said earlier, cheap and easy setup measures such as area-wide signage, repeater signs, road markings to complement the signage, planter boxes if risk assessments allows, and community behaviour change will all be set into the trial. So recommendations, first of all, Recommendation 1, the proposal go to public consultation to implement a pilot 20 mile per hour speed limit zone in the study area. 2, the receipt of the future report from officers summarising the results of the public consultation exercise with a view to introducing an 18-month pilot 20 mile per hour speed limit zone in the area. And finally, 3, the receipt of future officers report summarising the results of the pilot 20 mile per hour speed limit zone in the study area in the event one is introduced in accordance with number 2, and recommendations for whether or not to rule out 20 mile per hour speed limit zones in other residential or urban settings. And I recommend this to the Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Lowndes, and I'm quite happy to second that report. Councillor Julian Dean has asked if you can speak. Councillor Julian Dean is the local member for this area. Councillor Dean.
Get this to go on. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Councillor Dean, member for Port Hill. Thank you very much for this report. I hugely welcome this. I want to say thank you especially to the officers involved, to Rose Dobie, who's done a lot of imaginative work, both in terms of developing this report and in terms of consultation. We had very extensive consultation locally through the autumn, which involved walkabouts and meeting locals, and this is in large part a result of that. I just think that Cabinet members might benefit from a little bit of history. So when I went back in 2017, I discovered that there'd been a report into New Street which recommended some measures to make it safer, in particular for pedestrians. The members probably know that it's a very narrow street outside the Boathouse pub. That had sort of been sitting on shelves, but we did manage to pursue it and get an agreement to have a trial. That then took a little bit longer, and eventually that trial came through as part of COVID measures, and it was very well received, but there were knock-on effects, in particular on the Cockthall Road. And so we then had to think about, okay, how could we enhance the rest of that area? And it was at that point that Rose came forward with some very imaginative proposals, which went out to very wide consultation. Lots of people got involved. And there was a split feeling about many of the measures, but the one measure that came through very strongly supported was 20 miles an hour. There's a few lessons I just want to draw out for Cabinet because I think it's useful. Through that process, there's been a number of different processes of consultation, and some of them had to be revisited. And so to hear the earlier question from Councillor Boddington in Ludlow making a similar point, and I've also heard a similar story around the consultations to do with the school street in Bellevue. There has been a history, unfortunately, of some of these consultations perhaps not ticking all the boxes that they needed to tick and then having to revisit things. My impression from talking to officers is that we are through that, and I hope we get some reassurance that those lessons have been learned so that we can avoid repeated consultations. In this case, we're having another consultation on something where we already know 85% of the people are in favour, but I do understand the need to do that, so I will be encouraging people to respond. The second lesson, I think, is just that the consultation we had in the autumn around, if you like, a full fat, low traffic neighbourhood scheme, where some of the other measures did not receive support. There's a risk if we treat those types of consultations as referendums. People have not yet seen it, and so it's really important that we continue to be brave and that we trial schemes like this to see how then people respond to them and how they act to it. Having said all that, I welcome this. There's just one little concern, which is that the scheme, the geography of the scheme is very sensible, and actually leaving the area of the scheme is at almost every point will slow you down naturally, so there aren't any risks of speeding out of the scheme. There is just the one concern on the mount, where actually as you leave the scheme going out of town on the mount, there is the opportunity to speed up, and so I do think it's important that we take account of that and perhaps put in a vehicle activated sign or something to encourage people not to do so. But otherwise, I welcome this, and I'm confident that the result of the trial will be that we will, as we've been arguing for some time, discover that the area-wide 20 miles an hour is a benefit to our communities for all the reasons that the Cabinet member outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Basman.
Yes, thanks very much. I've got a comment here from Councillor Wilson, whose ward is directly affected by this scheme. But just before I read his comment, I just want to back up what Councillor Dean was saying about data. I am very concerned on some of his consultations in the past that we haven't collected data, and that's so very, very important for making sure it's a proper assessment at schemes like this one. But just to read out what Councillor Wilson said, which very much backs up the point that Councillor Dean was just making. I'm in favour of the project and think it's an important step forwards. However, I'm disappointed that a large section of the land isn't included, despite the dangerous speeds identified in the report. Because of large amounts of new housing being built to the north of the land, and is only having one narrow pavement for large parts, it's in desperate need of at least one pedestrian crossing and lower speeds to enable more people to walk in the local area near the town centre. I have to say, I used to live on just off the mounds, and there is certainly a dire need for another pedestrian crossing on that particular section of road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Basman. Councillor Julia Buckley.
Thank you, Julia Buckley from British North West and Tatterley. It's interesting, isn't it, that on this pilot we're already hearing from neighbouring residents and neighbouring streets that also wish to be considered. And as we all know, there's actually quite a long waiting list of lots of other areas that have requested 20-mile-an-hour zones. I'm aware of some that were requested several years ago. They were approved and then they were pulled due to budget cuts. So you have a historic list of areas desperate for 20 miles an hour. And I'm aware of some new areas in my own town in British North. The town council voted unanimously for a request for the whole town to be considered as a 20-mile-an-hour zone. And at the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee, we had a discussion about having a pilot which was also outside of Shrewsbury. So it's brilliant to have an 18-month pilot to collect the data and for us to have a look at what we can learn from that lesson. Because what I hope it leads to is a much wider discussion about having a county-wide policy on this, which everyone knows brings economies of scale, means we can roll it out quickly and we can reap all those benefits in one go. So why not have a pilot outside of the county town, either in a small village or a small town, so then your data covers both type of population. 75% of Shropshire residents live outside of Shrewsbury. So having a zone that covers a whole village, protects schools, residents, businesses, is quite a different proposition to one small slice of Shrewsbury. And we're already hearing that residents in the neighbouring streets already think it doesn't go far enough. So I have two pleas. One is that we consider those requests put forward both from individual towns and through the scrutiny committee, requesting that pilots are not just held in Shrewsbury, so that our data is rural proofed. And secondly, that we prepare ourselves during these 18 months, so when we get the data back, we're ready to have that really big conversation about are we brave enough to consider a rollout county-wide? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Leader. I appreciate what Councillor Buckley is saying, and obviously there is a natural process for this. Any community has the right to put what they want on their place plan. And then if they put it on their place plan that it is a priority for their community, they can then look at the other priorities for their communities and decide within the budgetary constraints which they have locally or we have centrally where the money should be spent. I don't think it should be looked at in isolation, but it needs to be a grown-up conversation of limited funds and where do you want the infrastructure spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Owens, did you want to come back on any of that?
Yes, thank you. Just a few points. First of all, as Councillor Deans mentioned initially, I'd like to thank Rose Dobie for all the work she has put into this. It's been well, and it leads on to other things. That there's a concurrent activity goes on here as well. So although it's been looked at there, the widened out, it's mentioned outside of Shrewsbury, has already been looked at, but we have to take one step at a time. So it is all being considered, and likewise with the extent of the mount, etc. These areas are being looked at, and the pedestrian crossing, although it relates to it, is a separate issue to this action report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owens. Nobody else? So I have a proposer, seconder, all those in favour? Thank you. Those will be put into place. Thank you, Councillor Dean. So moving on to item number 9, which is the economic growth strategy. Councillor Potter.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Ed Watson, Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder for Economic Growth, Regeneration and Planning. Over the past few months, we have been undertaking as a local authority an economic growth strategy refresh, which will cover the period 2022 to 2027 across 3 strategic themes: supporting local business, strategic locations and employment and skills, and following engagement with businesses, stakeholders and partners, Cabinet is asked to approve the draft economic growth strategy to go out to public consultation for a period of 6 weeks. The consultation will take place, and then the final strategy will come back to full council for approval at a later date. The development of the draft economic growth strategy is the outcome of ongoing collaborative work between Shropshire Council and the Economic Task Force, Shropshire business community, along with other key partners and stakeholders. The Economic Task Force has been a very successful vehicle for this, having been established during the pandemic to look at ways in which Shropshire can emerge from the effects on the local economy from the pandemic, which has been a key focus for business and for local authority and stakeholders for the past 2 years. Establishing this group has been essential to delivering forward this refresh of the economic growth strategy. There has been also a number of engagement with members' briefings. It has been to scrutiny twice, and feedback has been received from those events as well. This sets us in good stead, particularly for delivering things such as the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and also meeting the challenges which the local economy faces in relation to various issues which we all are aware are ongoing. The recommendations are at paragraph 3, which are quite straightforward, that the economic growth strategy go out to consultation for a period of 6 weeks. The Cabinet agrees that officers will report on the outcome, and it will come back to Council for endorsement, and that the Cabinet delegates authority to the Executive Director of place in consultation with myself as Portfolio Holder over these matters. I very much hope that Cabinet will support this. This isn't just a Shropshire Council economic growth strategy. This is very much a county economic growth strategy with input from many businesses, organisations and partners throughout Shropshire. And I think that is very much reflected in the strategy, and I hope everyone's had a chance to look at this. I know Cabinet had a very detailed briefing on it several weeks ago as well, so everyone should be well cited, and I hope you'll approve this today.
Thank you, Councillor Potter, for proposing that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, more than happy to second this proposal. More importantly, great, I would fully endorse seeing businesses grow in Shropshire, and more than that, to increase our business rate intake. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Always an eye on the money. Okay, but I'm just going to make one comment actually that it is slightly off piste perhaps, but I think the way that this strategy has actually been laid out signals the way forward for our strategies and the way they sit under the local plan, under our Shropshire plan. You know, this is not the same sort of strategy that we used to have. This is one that people can actually pick up and read and hopefully understand it quite easily. So, Councillor Potter, if you could pass on my thanks, and I'm sure the thanks of Cabinet, to the officers involved in that, I would be very grateful. Thank you very much indeed. So I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. As I said earlier, I'm going to bring the levelling up, can't even say this, levelling up update forward as Councillor Potter may need to leave before the end of the meeting. So levelling up update, Councillor Potter.
Thank you very much. So members will be quite familiar with this. So this is we are putting forward three bids covering three constituencies. As similar to what we did previously, we're on a tight time scale here. Bids have to be submitted by the 6th of July, 12 noon. Hence the fact it's coming forward for approval. Cabinet to put forward the three bids. In addition to this, there is also a transport bid. Members will remember, following the unsuccessful bid of the Bus Back Better, another ambitious and extremely well thought out and game-changing proposal has been put forward for public transport, particularly around buses in Shropshire, particularly in rural areas, but also serving and connecting our communities much better as part of this. So just to recap, members will be very familiar with this. In the south of the county, in the Ludlow constituency, it's a bid for Craven Arms. In the centre, in the Shrewsbury Action constituency, it's a big town plan bid around Shrewsbury Riverside. And in the north of the county, in the North Shropshire constituency, it is the Oxford Street Innovation Park area bid. So this is for round 2 levelling up. There will also we are also going to be there's an opportunity looking to the east of the county where the MP Mark Whitchurch covers both Shropshire Council and Telford and Wrekin Council area to support a bid which will probably come forward from Telford and Wrekin in that area, and we will work obviously with our colleagues across the council border to support any bid that's come forward to support any economic growth and development in the east of the county, which might sit in a different council area, but of course is significantly important for the wider Shropshire economy, because we know that businesses and people don't see those political boundaries and borders. So I very much hope that Cabinet will approve this paper and we will get these bids submitted and hopefully look forward to some success in the process.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. I'm happy to second that report. Do I have any questions? Julia first, then David.
Thank you. I'm interested that Potter thinks that we're all very familiar with this process, because I don't really feel that we've been involved very much. So on one level, I'm surprised that the same projects that failed the last round have been resubmitted again, and I note that they will be refined. But having spent 20 years as a bid writer, if my projects were rejected, I would try a different project, which brings me on to the consultation aspect. At what point are wider members involved in selecting the most appropriate and urgent projects that match the criteria for levelling up? Because I don't feel that we've ever been consulted or involved. I appreciate your informing us that you have refined the previously failed bids to try again. Why not present to a wider group of members a longer list of projects across the county, not just in Conservative divisions, and why not ask us which ones we think could hit the criteria and might be successful? And then from that, we might arrive at a shortlist which might be more successful. So could I please request that for the next round of levelling up, that the wider members of this council are involved earlier, and that we have a say and a voice in what are the priority projects, and make sure that we have one that succeeds. I have a further question on behalf of Councillor Rosemary Dartmouth. It's just around the bus bid. She really welcomes that, and I think it's really positive. But we recognise that the 50 million bid, which is the cap in the application, is almost half of the original BSIP. Once again, we're not familiar because we're just given 2 paragraphs of information. So what we need to know is which aspects are in the bid and which aspects have been removed. And we need to understand, is this in addition to other applications, or have we shared half of our ambitions? So I suppose the overall message is there's just a lack of information and engagement for those of us wider than this small pool of cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Houseman.
Thank you. Yes, just to echo what Councillor Buckley was just saying there, I welcome particularly the bus element of this, but I am concerned about the reduction in the scale of the bid compared to BSIP. And I would be really grateful for some more information, because there is no doubt that there is a growing concern about the level of our bus services and about the fact that they are not catering for the needs that's out there in both urban and rural areas. So I would like more information, but nevertheless, I have to say I do welcome this. I welcome this bid very strongly.
Thank you, Councillor Houseman. First, I'm going to take Councillor Cecilia Motley.
Thank you very much, Leader. And as far as the bus situation is concerned, the passenger transport manager and myself had a meeting with the Transport Minister, which was kindly facilitated for us by Daniel Kowczynski. And we put our plans before her, and we offered her the opportunity of allowing us, if that's the right way around, to present it as a pilot scheme, because what we wanted to be able to demonstrate was that we could do a whole county bus service improvement plan, which also encompassed rural areas, which at the moment are very sadly left out of this, and also encompassed managing to connect the transport offer within Shropshire. So we weren't just talking about buses, we weren't just talking about one particular bus company, we weren't just talking about one particular town, but that we were looking at it from a very much a holistic county-wide approach. Now, we, as you know, had a members' briefing just a couple of weeks ago on the subject of our transport plans, and from there we are forming an all-party group. And I'm delighted to say that every group within the council, every political grouping, is to be represented on that working group. We will be starting work very, very shortly on this, because what we want to do is, we are up against a time frame here. We know we've got to get the levelling up bid for our transport schemes in by the beginning of July. They are already well advanced, but we want to make sure that we absolutely stress test them with our working group, and we want everybody to be involved in that way. So I appreciate that that we're asking for less money, but I believe we can actually produce